Hi, everyone. My name is Charmaine Siagian, and I'm the educational piano editor here at Hal Leonard in Milwaukee. Welcome to our webinar with Phillip Keveren and Mona Rejino. As usual, we'd love to know where you're watching from, so please say hello in the comments. We have about 1,000 teachers registered from around the country and a few beyond that. Okay, let's get to introductions. Both our presenters are original co-authors of the Hal Leonard Student Piano Library, which was written in the olden days in the 1990s. But the music and pedagogy remain solid, and the authors are here to remind you of some of the method's best pieces and also their favorite teaching concepts. First, we'd like to welcome Mona Rejino from her piano studio in Dallas, Texas. Hello, Mona.
Hello, good morning.
Mona teaches at the Hockaday School, and just for your FYI, her birthday was just a few days ago, so please wish her happy birthday in the comments. And next is, of course, Phillip Keveren, who is coming to us from his piano studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Hi, Phillip.
Good to see you.
An interesting tidbit about Phillip before they start is that he had an actual conversation with the Karen Carpenter of the Carpenters after winning a Yamaha competition when he was a wee lad. Very cool. Okay, so now without further ado, here's Mona and Phillip.
Good to see you, Mona. How are things?
Things are great, Phillip. Good to see my friend.
Boy, Mona, it's a trip down memory lane, remembering how we met and first collaborated on the Hal Leonard Student Piano Library. If memory serves, 1993 was the year, and Barbara Crater, Fred Kern, and you and I met up in Dallas to discuss the possibility of putting together this series. And boy, over the next 3 years, we met in hotel conference rooms and each other's private studios. It was a lot of work over those 3 years. And then we introduced, was it all the first three levels or just level one? I can't remember anymore.
I think it was the first three in 96 in Kansas City at the MTNA convention.
Yeah. I know it was Kansas City, and I can't remember for sure, but it must have been the first three levels. And, this method has, of course, a lesson book, has a solo book with more challenging solos to expand the lesson book experience. There's a theory book, there's a technique book, there's a note speller, there are Christmas piano solos, there are hymn solos. Gosh, what have I left?
Piano
pop collections that are all leveled as well. Piano practice games, and all of these have a place in a studio, depending on the teaching style of the teacher and the learning style of the student. But we did find that we got a lot of requests to do an all-in-one book. And we have done that now for the first two levels. And you're looking now at the all-in-one books for both 1 and 2. And I'm going to start with all-in-one book 1. Seems like a very good place to start, don't you think, Mona? All right. In book 1, at the point where we have completed a group of black note off the staff piece experiences, we're now ready to introduce C, D, and E. And you're looking at the page where the student is going to find C, D, and E with 1, 2, and 3, all of them up and down the keyboard. And then they can do the same thing with the left hand, 3, 2, 1. Just explore and discover the geography of that keyboard on this page. Then we look at a group activity here where we are going to do, it's interesting. Let me turn my own page here. Asking the students to write in the letter names on the page. I'm just remembering how really engaging Fred Bell's artwork is as I look at that page It just makes me want to jump in and do this activity. Color the C's red, the D's blue, and the E's green. And I have 2 grandchildren now, and it seems like a common question. What is your favorite color, Papa? I don't know why that's such a big deal, and they ask it numerous times. So then on page 45, we have what I feel to be one of the real unique and strong aspects of the Hal Leonard Student Piano Library. And that is providing the opportunity for a student to play out of the box, have a little fun with improvisation. And in this case, my own song using the 3 notes that we're just experiencing, C, D, and E. The teacher plays a harmonic underpinning over which anything is going to sound fine. And it provides rhythm. The student then can explore those notes. And it gives you a chance to make music together in the very early levels of the method. And it's really interesting, the different types of ways that students will interface with this idea. But my own song remains throughout the method, all the way through book 5, just becoming more sophisticated as we move along. Then I'm going to move to page 46, where they're going to find C, D, E on the keyboard and spell different words here if they put in the correct letter name. So we're going to have a D for dog and E for snake, etc. One of those fun activities that is pulled out of one of the auxiliary books and brought into the all-in-one. Then I'm going to turn to the repertoire piece that puts together the C, D, and E and one of the black notes that they've been playing earlier. And Party Cat brings it all together in a little blues piece. Rock and roll is where it's at for my family's Party Cat. Lies around and sleeps all day. Rocks the night away. I think we can thank Tony Caramia for this piece, because we did an early version of book 1 and asked some consultants to come in and give us their impressions. And Tony said, I sure wish you had some more jazz already in here. And that was what inspired the idea. How about C, D, and E with that bluesy flatted 7th note? Now we're going to listen to one of the recorded accompaniments that the students have available to them originally via MIDI or a compact disc. Now you can get all of these orchestrated accompaniments just by looking in the front of the book, and it gives you a code. You go to halleonard.com and you can download these files for use on whatever tablet your student is using. We're going to listen to the practice version of Party Cat, which is slower than the ultimate performance tempo. And the piano is part of this version. And then the performance version of this will be a little faster with the piano left out. So let's listen. Okay, so we've come to the end of this portion of book 1. Mona, do you want to take us into book 2?
I am happy to. But before we leave book 1, I just want to say kudos to Phillip for taking 4 little notes and writing such an appealing piece. It is still one of my students' favorite songs forever. Even when they get into levels 2 and level 3, they still go back and play Party Cat. And, it reminds me that Hal Leonard was the very first publisher back in the day, as Charmaine said, that put these accompaniments, recorded accompaniments, available for the students. And when we were first writing the method, Phillip put together just a little demo CD with just a handful of songs out of book one. And we sent it home with the students to see how they liked it. And I had a little 5-year-old student at the time named Casey with this bright red hair just all over the place. She looked like Annie off of Broadway. Really precocious and smart kid. So Casey learned it at her lesson one day, and I said, okay, I'm going to send this CD home with you. I want you to play along with it, and next week let me know how it goes. Well, later that evening, her mother called me, and I'll never forget. She said, Casey has been playing Party Cat with the CD for an hour and a half. And Steve and I are about to go crazy, but on the other hand, we're so excited that she is so excited about it. So, and now Casey actually has several music degrees and is a professor at Texas Tech University. So you never know where it's going to lead you. Phillip also mentioned the improvisations, and just from a teaching standpoint, we can learn so much by listening to our students make up their own song. Even in those very first lessons, when you're playing an accompaniment, if you're playing a flowing, beautiful accompaniment and the student is just on another planet, just, not paying any attention to what you're doing, then ooh, my work's going to be cut out for me. Or you might find a student who just immediately is listening and they really key into the mood that you're playing and they join in with it. So, even their sense of rhythm, you can get a really strong sense of just what kind of a student they are going to be. Maybe they have an ear or whatever. And even now, one of my favorite things to do that my students love is, sometimes they come in and they're just tired, and they just need, I call it a brain break. Maybe we've worked really hard on their pieces during the lesson. And so we will take a few minutes and I will just make up an accompaniment. I ask them what mood they're in that day. I'll make up an accompaniment and then they play along. And it just seems to give them a breath of fresh air, And just quick tip about this. We have 2 books out. I'll put it up on the screen for you, Scales, Patterns, and Improvs. And there are accompaniments written in here by Phillip for every possible key, all the major and all the minor keys, for 5-finger pattern improvs, for full scale improvs. And they're just every genre you can imagine, from country and western to tango to dreamy to Broadway. So that's a really fun thing to explore with your students as well. Okay, I need to get on to book 2. So we're going to go to the all-in-one book C first. And we're going to start with just a very general activity. This is just a basic theory page of reviewing the notes that they know up to this point. But Fred Bell's wonderful artwork makes it anything but ordinary. So we can see that Spike is up to something there, but they have to color in the notes with the correct colors in order to discover that Spike is actually playing a grand piano. So that's a really fun page for them. Next, we're going to look at a technique book page, because about this time in the method, they're learning the difference between melodic and harmonic intervals. And at this point, we're just doing seconds and thirds. So there's a cute little piece called B Cha-Cha, just very straightforward and simple, but with a little cha-cha rhythm where they can explore that exact activity. All right, let's go to the next theory workbook page. And this is actually an ear training page. And I am certainly guilty as a teacher of not spending enough time on ear training. So we made sure in the theory book that we wove in a lot of those activities for you to do with them. So here it's very simple. They've just learned staccato and legato. So we know that they can read it in music, but we want to make sure that they can hear it. So you're going to play 6 different examples, and they just circle whether those are being played staccato or legato. You can make up your own, or if you like, they're provided in the back of the book. All right, now we're going to go to another theory page. Here, Party Cat is holding up balloons. This is in the all-in-one book. And the student just has to circle whether the interval is harmonic or melodic. So it's a very quick page, but very colorful. And I hope that you can see from what Phillip has told you in book one and from what I'm saying about book two, that we really address all the different learning styles that you're going to run across as a teacher. You know, some kids are very visual. You know, if it's written on the page, they will do it. That's how they key in. Others are more physical. They have to have the hands on before it makes sense to them on the keyboard. You have some who are just very intuitive. They kind of follow that sixth sense. And then others are more auditory. You know, they're your more ear learners. So we approach it from all of those different ways to make sure that it resonates with each one that we're teaching. Now, this takes us to Please No Bees, which is the lessons book piece that they are learning at the time. And as you can see in the concept box here, we're going to show them, you know, what the word interval means. Up until now, we just use steps and skips. Now it's an interval of a second or a third. And Barbara Crater wrote this delightful little piece, and I don't think she would mind if I told you the day that she wrote it, she said everything was going wrong. You know, it was just one of those days. And finally, she just closed the door to her office, sat down, and kind of got her frustrations out by writing this little piece. Please no bees, on my nose or neck or knees. Bring no sting, find a rose, not my nose. And then it ends with a low note with the ouch. So we know what happens. So here's Please No Bees. So you can hear and see that there are a lot of rests, really important rests in that piece. And when you play it along with Phillip's brilliant accompaniment, it's almost like a musical metronome. And he just makes it so much fun because he uses a bassoon and xylophone, some very clever instruments just to really bring the music to life. So next we're headed to the solos book. And as Phillip mentioned earlier, the pieces in here are going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more challenging. They tie everything together that has been presented. So in this really fun little 5-finger piece, the Macaroni Cha-Cha, we're going to review seconds, thirds, legato, staccato. The middle section is maybe my favorite because you have this wonderful little conversation between the left hand and the right hand. And the lyrics are guaranteed to make you hungry. You know, I love tacos, you love pizza, but everybody loves that little noodle. All right, we're ready for level 3, so I'll turn it over to Phillip.
All right, level 3. We're going to be looking first at a page out of the theory book where we're asking the student to name the 5-finger pattern that is represented in the score here. Is that C major? I believe it is. So they would write in C. As you can see, we have C major, A minor, F major, D minor, G major, and E minor. So that's the theory page. When we turn then into the technique book, we're going to begin expanding out of the 5-finger pattern and starting with the open 5th and then expanding to the 6th. 1, 5, 1, 5 in both hands. And well, that is a really interesting pattern within the blues style. So why not apply this to a piece, and we're going to do it with a piece called Spike's Blues. So we're going to start with this little warm-up. C position, now F position, and then G, F. We're getting ready to move into Spike's Blues, which we then find on the next page. Here is Spike's Blues in its entirety in a good old 12-bar blues formula. And there is a fun little teacher accompaniment that is, rather than below the student, which is typical, above. So the student is providing now we can take this concept and apply it into one of our repertoire pieces where we're going to play in some blues styles. From the lesson book, we have You Can't Lose with the Blues. Sorry, I put them up on my music stand backwards. So this is a wonderful little chance to expand we get to play a groovy chord. You can't lose with the blues. Now I'm going to move over to the solo book. And as we've been saying, the solo book is always a chance to play something that might go just a little bit further down the road, a little more of a challenge. Baroque Boogie is a little piece that takes the concept of blues and puts it together with a Baroque style. And so we're going to start with the boogie and then move into the Baroque. Now it says properly. And away we go back to our, now I'm going to go to the end for now. Oh, that one brings back memories for me. Back in the day when our son Sean was learning that piece, and it got a lot of airplay in our house. Sean is now a grown man and still playing the piano, by the way, for his own amazement. He works in the computer field, but the piano is a source of great joy in his life. And it's fun when he comes over here with his wife and kids. They come in here and have fun on the piano, and it's a joy to watch. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Book 4. Mona.
So if we digress just a little bit to the end, the last couple of units of Book 3, the pieces and the concepts that are introduced are exploring a lot of different major and minor 5-finger patterns. So going into Book 4, students are, really up to speed on that. So we're going to expand on that in Book 4 all the way into the full major and minor scales. And they're going to be introduced in their relative form. So we start with C major. And on page 18, by this point, they already know the C major scale. They've played it. They've played pieces using it. Now we're going to show them how the C major and A minor scales are related by either taking the sixth note of the major scale to find the beginning note of the minor scale, or the little trick of going 3 half steps backwards to find it. And they're going to learn how to play the natural, excuse me, and the harmonic minor scales. And on the very next page, it's titled Moving On Up, and this is actually playing those scales. And I don't know if you can see or not, but the raised seventh, the G sharps are in blue. So you, the teacher, in the accompaniment, and the student, the first time are going to omit the G sharps and play the natural form. And then on the repeat, you're going to add them back in to make the harmonic form of the scale. And, what I like about having an accompaniment with these scales is the students have to keep going, right? There's no slowing down when the thumb goes under or you have to cross 3 over. It's within a musical context. All right, next, let's look at a theory page. And this is helping them to further put down on paper what they just learned. So Spike and Party Cat are still with us there. You see at the top of the page. And they're showing us the exact whole step and half step pattern for the natural minor scales. And then the student is going to write those out in 3 different octaves. And I really like that because it's going to help review ledger line notes, which is a weakness for some of them. So this is a good writing exercise as well. Now I want to look at the technique book, because they're getting ready to play a piece that you've probably taught before. It's Gurlitt's Allegro, but they need some preparation for that. So in the technique book, we have a kind of a clever little piece titled Beethoven's Fifth Knot, just a little etude, because in the Gurlitt Allegro, the hardest part is those little hand shifts moving slightly from one position to another. And this is going to prepare them for that. But they'll definitely hear the Beethoven's Fifth Symphony theme in the etude. So that's kind of bare bones, and that gets them ready to play the Gurlitt piece, which is really quite similar, except, beefed up, and we have added the A minor and the C major scales to this one. And that takes us, of course, to the solos book. And the piece that I want to share with you from here is titled Scavenger Hunt, in the key of A minor. And I'll tell you a little background on this piece. I remember it so well, although it was decades ago. But it was one summer day, and I was driving from our home to SMU campus for the National Piano Teachers Institute. And all of the sessions began at 9 a.m. Well, traffic was a mess that day, and I knew that I was going to be late to the first session, and I was just so bummed out and just, feeling anxious and frustrated and, all those things you feel when you're in traffic. So as I was sitting at, after a red light, after red light, after red light, this little 5-finger melody kept running through my head. Kind of persistent. And then in the left hand, I was thinking of a little, and you put it together, and here's the short version of Scavenger Hunt. Now we're going to jump all the way ahead to actually the end of book 5. And I want to show you the very last technique piece that students are going to learn here. And all of the technique pieces begin with a warm-up. And so here you can see what's going on is they're learning how to play a very common chord progression, the 1, 4, 1, 6, 4, 5, 7, 1. So we, let them know that they need to keep the same finger on the common tones, and there's very minimal movement going from one chord to the other. And of course, you have to carefully use syncopated pedaling. So you can see at the bottom of the page, we use long rhythms so that they can really focus on all of this. Now, if we go to the next page, the actual etude ceremony is 2 pages long. And it's going to take this chord progression and run it through all the different keys that they have played in thus far. And as you can see, we're going around the circle of fifths. So C major, A minor, F major, D minor, and so on all the way through the keys. All right, now Phillip is going to tell you a little bit about the rest of book 5.
I'd like to digress, if I might, for a moment and just say that Scavenger Hunt is one of the gems in the Hal Leonard library. I've heard that in recital a few times, and you can just tell that's one of these pieces, especially what do we call them? The 3 across 4. I'm losing the theory term, but that great rhythmic trick in the middle, they just play with such vigor. So anyway, just want to say, Mona, I've heard that played so many times with great joy.
Thank you.
So the end of book 5, the canon in D is what we're preparing for. And that is one of those pieces that everybody loves, of course, the Pachelbel canon. But in preparation for that, we're going to play the open triads as they appear diatonically in the key of D. So not just, we're going to voice them 1, 5, 3. And that is a beautiful voicing all the way up. Then put them in the proper order that is going to be exploited in the Pachelbel. D to A to B minor. And that just by itself is such a beautiful sound on the piano. Then we explore the idea of creating a motif within that chord progression. What would it be if we moved it down? So we're really exploring the diatonic D progression in the key of D, and then we're going to apply it to the famous canon in D, arranged by Fred Kern. Just so excellent of an arrangement. Of course, we always have to remember that since we're going to have 16th notes coming down the pike, we better think about our tempo. It's going to be appropriate for 16th notes, and be very patient because we're going to cover a lot of territory here. And moving ahead, I'm going to move to the bottom of the page. And of course, eventually we get to the this arrangement of the Pachelbel is so playable and musical. It's a very successful ending to lesson book 5. And that makes me remember our colleague Fred Kern with We Miss You, Fred. Fred passed on a couple of years ago, and he spoke into the lives of literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of students via all his teaching over many, many years, not to mention his book publishing. So I believe I turn the stage over to Charmaine. Is that correct? Or are we going on to Mona right now?
We have some questions for the both of you, actually.
All right.
Right. So, well, thank you for that. Thank you for playing so beautifully and for such a great presentation. I just want to say before we go on to the questions is that, you know, Billy Joel was on CNN the other day extolling the virtues of the John Thompson method, which was in the real olden days, the 1930s. So maybe in 90 years, someone like, I don't know, John Legend will be saying the same thing about the HLSPL method. Let's hope, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Okay, first question. Is the pacing different between the regular course in comparison with the all-in-one course? And does one move more quickly or slowly than the other?
Well, I would take that one because I use them both all the time. What we did is we took book 1 and divided it up into book A and book B in the all-in-one. And then book 2, of course, is in book A and book B in the all-in-one. So when you use the all-in-one method, you're going to assign more pages, probably. I mean, they're going to get to the end of the book more quickly. You might assign 7 or 8, maybe even 10 pages in 1 week because they're doing technique and theory and, solos and lessons all together. But the actual music is basically identical. I mean, they get all of the same pieces, whether they're in the all-in-one method or in the regular original method.
Excellent. Okay, here's an easy one. Is there an older beginner or adult version of this series?
Indeed. The Hal Leonard Student Piano Library for Adults. And there are 2 books. They're both 96-page tomes. And so they are many of the same pieces that are in the student library, but oldified, shall we say. Is that a word? The artwork is made more sophisticated, and the pacing is, of course, different for an adult. So, yes, indeed, and the Hal Leonard adult, those 2 books are very popular, used often in collegiate situations as well.
And that brings us to the next question. Is there a pop book for level 1?
There is. Maybe a couple.
Well, I think there's already a second edition of the leveled books that go with the method, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, this is a little embarrassing, but I lose track.
There are so many.
There are many, and we've done updates, and yeah, but there's at least 2 pop collections, I think.
Right, and there's also the popular piano solos series that I think Mona has done a lot.
Right.
Arrangements for that.
Yeah.
Hey, let's continue on with the rest of the webinar. I think Mona is first.
Yeah, and the very first book here is, guess what, from the Popular Songs series that Charmaine was just referring to. So last year, she asked me if I would be interested in putting together a book of recent Disney movie pieces. And, the movies were going to be Frozen 2, Coco, and Encanto. And I jumped at the chance. I mean, what's not to love here? So we chose 3 pieces out of each of those films. And they're really cream of the crop pieces that people recognize and really, really enjoy. So it was a lot of fun to put this book together. Today, you're going to hear a video recording of 2 of the pieces. And one of them is maybe my favorite of all. It's the tender little lullaby from Coco, Remember Me. And before each piece in the book, there's a quote from the movie. So the quote here is, For even if I'm far away, I hold you in my heart. I sing a secret song to you each night we are apart. And, I remember my husband and I went to the theater and saw this movie, and I cried like a baby. It was such a sweet part of the movie, and such a beautiful little piece. And it's very short. It's 20 measures long, easy to play, not technical at all, but very resonant and filled with emotion. So you can be really expressive, lots of rubato in this piece. So here is a video clip of Remember Me. All right, we're going to shift gears to Encanto. And of course, you can't mention Encanto without Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. And the quote here is, "Not a word about Bruno. I never should have brought up Bruno." And, honestly, isn't there a Bruno in most everybody's family? We can relate to this. And oh my goodness, the kids absolutely love it. Lin-Manuel Miranda's genius is clearly in view here. The wonderful syncopated rhythms, the Latin feel that you have to it. This brings back a really sweet memory for me. Last spring was the first time we were able to meet for a recital in my studio. For 2 years, we've been doing everything on Zoom, and it was such a joy. And the families were so happy to be there in person. And I had just completed the arrangement of We Don't Talk About Bruno. And I thought, this is going to be a little dessert. So I played it for the families, and I asked the students to sing along if they knew any of the probably 2,000 words in this piece. And you would be surprised how many of them knew every single word. So you can just hear them singing it as you hear this video clip of a portion of We Don't Talk About Bruno. Just makes you want to get up and dance the salsa or something. to that one. All right, now we're going to flip the page over to a much more relaxing group of pieces. The title of the book, as you can see, is Reflections and Relaxations, 8 Peaceful Piano Solos. And so there are 6 original piano solos in this book, as well as 2 beloved arrangements. I teach quite a few adult students, and I find that they really enjoy not the finger burner pieces. You know, they're kind of over that. They want to play pieces that are calming, that are beautiful, that just kind of feed their soul. And there are a lot of those in this book. And even our younger students, you know, some of our teenagers and teenagers are so busy and, well, quite frankly, overbooked. You know, I don't know how they fit everything in 24 hours a day. And sometimes they just want to sit down and relax and play something that's not overly challenging, but that has a lot of musical merit. And I hope that you will find that in this book. I'm going to highlight 2 pieces for you today. The first one is titled Dreaming of Home. And it's a very wistful, melancholy feeling in this piece. And, you know, the feeling that anyone would have when they're a little bit homesick. You know, whether you're away at summer camp for the first time, or, you know, you're away at college and you're missing your family, you're missing home. Now, in the middle section, you are going to hear a transition to a major tonality. And to me, that represents a really fond memory. But then it goes back to the dreaming of home. You're not there yet. So here's a clip of Dreaming of Home. Next, we're going to move to one of the arrangements, and I think that Danny Boy is universally known and loved. You know, this melody has been around for over 100 years. It's an Irish folk song, and, you know, it just tears at your heartstrings. There's no other way to put it. So in this particular arrangement, you'll hear at the beginning, it's like something is at a far distance. And then you're going to hear some perfect fifths in the left hand. To me, that it's almost like bagpipes. Then there's pretty much a 4-part harmony, you know, almost hymn-like for the main body of the piece. And then when we get to the ending, it's going to come full circle and it ends the way that it began. So here is a clip of Danny Boy. So Phillip is going to finish up the webinar today with some of his most recent publications.
Okay, we're going to start with a book entitled Soothing Piano Worship. And this is part of the Phillip Keveren series that I've been doing now for 24 years. We've been doing these books. And supplemental material of all kinds of variety. This one is contemporary worship music. And this is an arrangement of In Christ Alone. And all of these arrangements are really intended to be peaceful, restful, things that you could certainly play in a service, but you could also use for just your own relaxation. And I'm hoping they also make really good teaching pieces because they're put together in such a way that I think you will find them pedagogically sound. Here's In Christ Alone. Etc. The pieces in this book include Good, Good Father, Great Are You, Lord, Holy Spirit, many more contemporary titles. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Soothing Piano Worship. Next, we're going to move to more of a jazzy idiom. This book is called Piano Standards. And these are great titles from the early 20th century, from folks like Irving Berlin and George Gershwin. We have After You've Gone and Always. I Wonder Who's Kissing Her Now. I'm Always Chasing Rainbows. And of course, an adult student or someone, a younger student that is interested in jazz would enjoy playing these pieces. I'm going to play What'll I Do, which is a great Irving Berlin song. And in the case of this arrangement, the left hand is really kind of imitating a piano bass styling that would be typical in a trio, where we have move to the bottom of the page. Jazzy chords and harmonies, and hopefully just enough jazz to keep it interesting, but not make it too difficult to play. Piano standards. I'm going to move now to Sondheim, Stephen Sondheim, and goodness gracious, the amount of material he has provided to the world of musical theater is stunning, and it was a privilege to put this book together. His music is very sophisticated, and many times there will be chords that you can't quite put your name, can't put a title on, you know. But he's very specific about his harmonizations. And so it was a challenge to make these songs work on the piano and stay true to the dynamic of his original composition. I'm going to play the song that could be his most famous, Send in the Clowns. And yes, key at E flat. Here we go. I'm going to skip to the second page, measure 14. So I think fans of Sondheim will certainly enjoy this book. But I would also say that students that are studying, that are interested in pop and jazz music would do well to get inside these Sondheim arrangements and expand their sense of harmonic understanding. So Stephen Sondheim for piano. Now we're going to have a little duet music. Queen for piano duet. And I've prepared a video for this piece. Hi, this is Phillip Keveren. New from Hal Leonard, we have Queen for piano duet. 8 great songs. I'm going to play a little bit of Crazy Little Thing Called Love. I don't have a duet partner today, but I do have a sequencer. So I pre-recorded one part. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Queen duets. All right. I think we're going to head back to Stormy.
Yes, a couple more questions before we go. Thank you both for such a great webinar. The first one is kind of out of left field a little, but maybe not. Any tips for a classical guitarist who is starting to branch out into playing more piano and taking on a few piano students?
Well,
It's hot water on this one.
well, you would probably do well to find some piano repertoire that has chord symbols in it. That will probably help you navigate the piano a little quicker.
Right. There's not enough information, I think, with this question. Do they already play? You know, how well, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, last question, and this is an easy one. My granddaughter loves the musical Hamilton. Will you be publishing an easy to play or intermediate edition? Now, I know Phillip has arranged, you'll be back from
Yeah,
now.
I've done a few of those in various collections. I think there's one in the popular collections.
Yeah, I think your Broadway book.
Broadway.
Yes, yeah. Yes, and Hal Leonard, I can add that Hal Leonard does have easy piano versions, beginner piano solo, as well as piano duet. So check all those out at our website. Okay, I know you're both very busy people. So any final words before we sign off?
Well, I would just like to say, what a privilege and blessing it has been over the past 30 years to work with the likes of Phillip Keveren, Barbara Crater, and Fred Kern. I mean, not only are they brilliant musicians and pedagogues, but also some of the most beautiful people you could ever know. So how lucky is that?
I second that, and I would like to call out and say, hello, Barbara, if you're out there. We love you, and thank you for all we've learned from you in the preparation of all these books.
Okay, thank you again so much. And everyone, we'll see you at the next one. Bye.
Thank you, Charmaine.
Bye.
Yeah.